Oh, welcome back to the Dive Line. Great to see everybody, and we have got a great episode coming up now. Over in his studio is Jim. How you doing, Jim?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you?
Good. I love the new technology you've been playing about with and the messages that we can see on the screen. So that's all down to Jim, not me, I must say. Thank you for doing that for us.
No, I've got to thank Mark Evans at Scuba Diver Magazine. That's down to him.
So what we got coming up on today's episode, we are all chomping at the bit to go diving again, and particularly on the inland dive sites here in the UK. And of course, we're not able to yet, but it's not going to be very long. To that end, I am really pleased to say that we have three of the biggest and best inland dive sites in the UK with us today. Tim from Vobster down in Somerset. We have Carol from Capernwray Diving up in Lancashire, and Scott from St Andrews Diving down in Kent. So welcome, guys.
Hi, Tim. How you doing?
Excellent. Very well, thanks.
Thanks for joining us. And Carol. Hi, Carol. Thank you for joining us. And, of course, Scott. Hello, Scott.
That's okay.
As we were saying, everyone's keen to go back to diving, and the inland sites in the UK are always really busy during the summer, and people want to know what's happening and when they can dive. But of course, it's got to be done safely under these new circumstances that we live in. All of us as businesses, particularly all the lakes, work under the health and safety executives, safety of staff at work, and so those considerations are being taken into place. But also have to put into some procedures into place to make sure that customers are going to be safe to be able to come back diving when that is allowed. Just in this last week, the British Divers Safety Group had a meeting, and Tim, you were actually part of that meeting. Do you want to just give us an idea of what was said there?
Sure. British Diving Safety Group is normally something which deals with safety measures that arise in a slightly slower way than the fast-moving COVID situation. We met on Tuesday after Boris's announcement. We heard from a number of medical people. We heard from the chamber operators. It's a lot of sort of expert-led people in that meeting. And really, without jumping the gun and speaking on their behalf, what I heard was concerns about lungs and things and such like that affect us as divers more. And really the consensus was that we need to find out more about this. That is only sensible. There are people from the BDF who are trying to do that at the moment. But sadly, unlike everyone who isn't underwater when they discover they've got a lung problem, maybe divers should be more cautious. So that's why the advice, and it is the advice, it's not the law, it's a group of people concerned with safety, hearing safety concerns, and just trying to take a bit more time to get some detail on what that is before we say, brilliant, let's go diving. So frustrating, yes. There is lots of work going on. People are trying to give people what they want, have a roadmap back, identify whether we can do, say, shore dives first or how it works. And unfortunately, at the moment, it's really hard to say 100%. And what we don't want to do, of course, is be taxing our overstretched emergency services. And we've all come so far. That's the gist. And it's advice. There we go.
The BDSG said, so now is not the time to restart diving in the UK because the contamination risks are still too high. So that was the main crux of the meeting, wasn't it?
You broke up a bit there, but there's a couple of things. There's a lot of operational stuff that we can do. People like Dan have worked through that. I think there's been a PADI statement this week. Lots of agencies have guidelines on how we can dive sensibly, and that's all great stuff. We're signposting that, not reinventing the wheel. What we were hearing was, how does this affect people who maybe have had a mild dose or a detectable dose, and what caution have we got there? Now, it's important to get these things right.
Absolutely, and I think that we cannot be premature. We just can't afford to rush into this. But I'm sure all of you guys behind the scenes are doing an awful lot with regards to the planning for when you actually can go back diving.
Biggest problem with this is that coronavirus is new. There's a lot of debate over what can happen and the consequences. And I don't want to jump the gun. I'm not speaking for the BDSG here. I was at that meeting, and that is what I was hearing. So everyone was very cautious about that. And I think as more detail becomes available, divers are going to hear about it as soon as possible. There's been some really gnarly scare stories on the internet about diving. We want to make sure that people have got the right information. I think that's where we're coming from.
We've not got an opening date for any of you, have we? And we don't know when that's going to be. So we're not even going to be talking about opening days. It's just what you guys are going to be putting potentially into place. Some things we know already, and how hard you guys are working behind the scenes, ready to open, because you want to open just as much as divers want to come and see you.
I think it all comes down to how we implement social distancing. So when we can go diving, when we can go swimming, when we can be all those things, how do we implement that social distancing, which is everywhere else? How do we do that well? And how do we provide the safest facility? That's a big focus for us.
Most people are asking, is there actually going to be any restriction on numbers? Carol, I know that from a car parking point of view, you've got an awful lot of space there. Do you feel that you might have to restrict numbers when we are able to come back?
We're trying not to, because basically we need those sort of numbers to maintain the business. Our car park is spacious and the bays are generous. So we will do our best to sort of mark up the car park so that there's a safe distance between cars. So some of the bays will stay as they are. Some of them might need to be altered, or we might need to put cones up in between where it's a bit tighter. But at the moment, we haven't done anything because we don't really know when it's going to be or what the guidelines will be at the time.
Yes, no, I can understand that. And Scott, what about you? Do you feel that you'd be able to cope with any number, or will they have to be limited?
My view is that we do limit numbers. We are quite fortunate. We've got a lot of land. We don't have marked car parking spaces at the moment, but I think that's something we need to go towards. But I think to give us confidence that we should bring in a controlled number of people to start off with, make sure we can manage that and grow it from there. I think to open the doors and have a huge amount of people turn up, the last thing we want to do is turn anybody away. So I think a control, steady grow back into where we were and accept those customers back is the right way to go. So it's all part of the risk assessment that we're working on now. So the big question is what is the right and we're looking at, do people want to dive every morning, of a day, of a whole day? How do you control those numbers? So it's something that we're looking at, and it's something that we certainly will consider. I think it is the right way to go for us to start off with. And it does depend where we are at that time of opening, of how quickly we can accelerate to a more general opening.
Yes. So do you feel that the way to control the numbers then would be to actually have pre-booking only, or you just said you don't want to turn people away, but how do you control the amount of numbers of people that actually turn up?
Yeah, but my thoughts at the moment are to do a pre-booking scheme. So we have had a deal running recently where to help us as a business, there's been a few people that have taken the deal. It was on Facebook that we would do a package of number of dives and honour that for the next year, and it gives a bit of a discount. So we've got some people that have prepaid for their diving for this year. We would like to get those people in and using the site, but I think pre-booking is the way to go. We want to share the access to the site to the local dive clubs. They're on the phone a lot. They all want to get back diving and teaching as soon as they can. So we don't want to fill it up with just clubs or just sort of casual divers, as it were. We want to make sure that there's enough for everybody. So the one thing we almost certainly will do is at this time we would normally be open less than 7 days a week. We almost certainly would be trying to open 7 days a week to enable there more time for people to dive, to get those people through.
That's a great scheme, a good idea in some pre-selling, some diving. I'm sure that in these really tough times, that must have helped cash flow a little bit, in that at least you've been selling something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've worked hard to try and keep our online presence visible and keep communicating to customers so they see that we're still here and still doing stuff. The idea actually came from one of our divers who offered it, and we then made it more general. So we offered it to swimmers and divers and everybody put it on Facebook as a general offer. But it has been great because it has exactly that. It's helped our cash flow in these times where we have no income at all. But also it gives us that commitment that we are going to open again. We will be accepting people back in. So it has done us very well. Very pleased that we did it.
So will pre-booking help for everybody? I don't think you necessarily agree with that, do you, Carol?
I'm not entirely sure yet because it hasn't. It's too far away at the moment. We didn't want to try pre-booking for a number of reasons. First of all, none of us have the IT skills to set it up. Secondly, it's something we've never done, and I think it would be very difficult to manage. And we have tried all these sort of things in the past. And if the world goes back to a semblance of normal and everybody is back at work, then as has always been the way, everybody will want to come at the weekends. So opening all week, Monday to Friday, isn't really going to make any difference. I mean, we've tried free air during the week, free food during the week, reduced price entries during the week, and it makes not a scrap of difference to the numbers that come to the site. So it's all about the weekends, really.
Well, I'm coming on a Wednesday. If there's free food and free air, I'm coming on a Wednesday.
We scrapped the scheme a while ago.
Just touching on the car park thing, Tim's not as fortunate as everybody else, are you? You don't have a very big car park, do you? So you won't be able to get as many people in.
No, we are in a quarry, and in the quarry, so our car park's tiny, and I think if we are going to make sure that social distancing is possible, we're almost certain to have something. Now, we do have, Vobster is owned by a chap who has a lot of expertise in IT, and we have a car park booking system anyway, so we've got the tools to use. I think the world is getting more used to things like click and collect. How that we're working through that hard as we can. We don't want to disappoint anybody, but equally so, we can't have the densities on site that we used to have. It won't work with social distance.
That's a regional difference, isn't it? You've all got regional differences, although you'll be all following the same sort of measures. I think as we carry on talking, there will be regional differences, a bit much like the booking that we just mentioned. So, although Carol doesn't think it'll work for her, it makes some sense to do that. So you haven't got cash exchange in hands either.
It's difficult.
Horses.
From our point of view, I don't, and I'm sure for the other sites as well, it's not in the water that's actually going to matter, because the water is 3D, so you've got so much space in there that there's plenty of room to distance. It's in your facilities that the problems arise. We can close the changing rooms. People can get changed in the car park. We can use a lot of extra sort of sanitisation and everything else around the site so that everybody has lots of hand washes and sprays and gloves available, masks can be used. But I also think that the divers are, intelligent people who understand their sport, and they should understand what's going on here. So I think the customers should carry some responsibility. And I think that nearly everyone will behave appropriately. And if someone isn't behaving appropriately, then we could step in and take action there. So I'm more inclined to trust my customers, I think.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because this is going to be very much a team effort, and you're only part of the team, you guys. The other side of the team, or the other players, is certainly going to be your customers and us as divers, and it's up to us to make sure that common sense is used and that we do keep to social distancing and as you say, use hand sanitizers. And I mean, I don't think I've ever used a changing room. I'm always in a dry suit in the summer, even in the UK, and put it on by the car and take it off by the car. And I think a lot of divers are the same. I wouldn't worry about the changing facilities. Toilets is a different thing. Obviously, you've got to think about how toilets are used. But it is very much going to be a team event, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Absolutely.
I've always personally disliked the nanny state type of things. We have to have health and safety, and we have to take care of safety practices, look after our customers and everything else. But I do think we're all responsible for ourselves at some point, and everybody makes an individual risk assessment every time they do anything. So I think that we should have a bit more faith in our divers, that they will use common sense. Once we're all open, things will come to light. We're all doing our best, and then we'll open and we'll find that something isn't working, so we'll change it as quick as we can. We can invite the customers to say to us, this isn't working, we're not happy about that, and we can change it. So it's going to be an evolutionary process once we open, not just something that's fixed in stone before we even start.
Sure.
So it's quite hard to say
of course.
exactly what you're going to do.
Yes. I think, Tim, you wanted to come in there too.
I like your point about the team event. I like the sort of credibility that Carol gives to the divers. And it is about that. It's about working with people. It's about communication. It's gone fairly well so far with people understanding that we're shut. If they can do the same thing when we gradually open, and as Carol says, we evolve, we change things, we get better, start low, get back towards normal, and of course tie in with the HSE social distancing guidelines, and also how the COVID alert level changes as well. We can respond to all of those things and share out whatever we can do among people. So all that understanding is much appreciated.
So what about rental equipment and dive clubs bringing in training? How do you think that may go forward in the future, Scott?
Well, from a rental equipment, from our own point of view, that's something I think we probably will restrict in the short term. That, of course, does depend on how the advice goes. We do have the information from Dan and around how to clean regulators and different equipment. But I think that to start off with, we'd be looking to make sure that we have customers come in with their own kit. Now, dive clubs do come, and you'd always find that somebody breaks or does need something. So we may have to be selective, but to start off with, I think that rental is something we probably will shy away from to start off with. As far as dive clubs coming in and doing training, so they are regular customers, they bring in good groups, they're great customers of ours. And so we'd like to support those. We have purposely built, just as things were starting to tighten up, we built a new confined water area to try and help clubs manage with the loss of pools. So we will do that. We may have to be more selective, that we may say that confined water areas is sort of booked to a club for that particular period or something. We haven't really got there. We don't really become too prescriptive. But what we do is possibilities to make sure that clubs bring their people on site. They can have an area that they can do their briefing with social distancing. They can do their up with social distancing. Get in the water, get out of the water, and all those things. So that's all part of the thinking.
I think we want to get the core things right first. So we want to be open. We want to make sure we can manage all the sanitation, the cleaning, all those kinds of control measures first. We'll probably step back into rental equipment. Obviously, if we're going to pass things around between people, it has to be properly cleaned. Some things are easier to clean than others. Regulators are obviously the acute thing. You just want to be sure we can do everything 100% right. So it'd probably be staged, maybe tank weights to start with, very simple. And we'll really work carefully through assessing the risk to us and other people of more personal items of equipment like masks, snorkels, and regulators.
Carol, I know that you do a lot of rental on dry suits up at Capernwray. That will continue?
Yes, I would expect to carry on rental as we do it now. We're pretty keen on cleaning it all in between uses as things have always been. So we've got some fairly good procedures. We can up that and use a lot more sort of chemical agents as recommended. And I would plan to continue. We don't do huge amounts of hire, but the hire we do tends to be for people who cannot otherwise get the equipment. So we're sort of a last resort. So we have some very big stuff, very small stuff. The things that people break and lose on the day, as Tim said. So, somebody breaks a mask or forgets something and they've driven 50 miles to get here or whatever, then I would expect to hire it. But I would expect to use single-use gloves, stringent sterilisation and hygiene between use, and keep it absolutely safe for us and the customers. But I think we can do that.
Yes, yeah, well, that's great to hear. And there are, as you say, lots of people that can't dive without being able to rent some equipment, and there's always something that is left behind or breaks on the day. Tim just mentioned masks, and it immediately occurred to me that I'm one of these people that spit in their own mask rather than use drops. I should imagine I would not be very popular if I got into your lake and spat in my mask. That's something that's going to have to change.
Well, I've had comments from customers already saying about what should we do about spitting and all the rest of it. We usually have a bucket for rinsing. Well, obviously that will go. People will have to use chemical mask defoggers. Might be lots of sales for those masks where they have sealed in nose pieces. The masks in our hire department, we put them through the kitchen dishwasher at the end of the day, which keeps them clean and gets rid of the black bits. And then they can be dunked in buckets of Milton or other sterilising agents in between uses. But I think the days of spitting in your mask and dunking it in the bucket on the end of the jetty are gone.
I do it when I jump in the water. I don't use the bucket I just do my giant stride in, and then I spit in my mask once I'm on the surface in the water. You still won't be able to do that either.
But if the glass is wet in a mask, when you spit in it, it doesn't work properly anyway. The spit has to key to dry glass before it actually works as a defog. So I see a lot of people doing that, and they've got a wet mask and they're spitting in it, but it's largely a waste of time, that. So they need to do it on land before they hit the water. Once they're in the water, the only thing they can do is just rinse it and carry on.
Story of Jim's life, Carol. The horse has already bolted.
Well,
it works for me.
Yeah.
I've been doing it a while and it works.
Yeah.
But this is going back to the whole being part of the team, and however much you guys all do to make the environment safe and to make it safe for your staff, customers are going to have to change the way they've done things in the past, aren't they?
Yeah, and we're going to have to put out guidelines as well. So it may not occur to everybody that it's an issue not to spit in their mask. So we will have to have a list of new rules for the site that everybody will have to agree to. Sort of no spitting, no touching, and whether they should wash their hands and all the rest of it. Yes, that's what the protocols are going to change for sure.
Excellent. Tim and Scott, views on that?
Well, I totally agree. The other bit of kit we have to think about is the dry suit. In that, if you've got a rear-edge dry suit, you need your buddy to help zip it up, and you can't do that from 2 meters. So, again, I'm sure the contamination is probably low, but this is what we need to do: is to bring in all these procedures and help people make the right decisions when as they kit up, as they get in and out the water, that they're taking the reasonable precautions. But as far as spitting in masks and things like that, I'm sure you'll get some beautiful views if you're seen at the end of the pontoon doing that.
I hadn't even thought of yet with regards to somebody doing because I've got a front entry myself, and so it didn't occur to me. But absolutely, how are you going to zip up your buddy without being within a meter behind him? You put your own mask on first.
Yeah. Well, also in the buddy check, you should be checking that the zip is firmly shut. So if they've got a flap that covers it over, at the moment, if we're teaching, then we encourage people to look at the zip, make sure it is actually zipped up. So it's little things like that. There's other things that, as if you're diving with somebody new, it's great to see it, but there's nothing like touching someone's gear to make sure you know where it is. So if you need it in the water, you know where it is. Now we need to adapt around that. That clearly is what we're moving away from. That you can buddy check yourself with your buddy watching you and listening to it as you go through things. But there are some parts of diving that currently we don't think twice about jumping and helping somebody when they've got caught up in their straps as they put on their BCD or whatever that might be. And I think we just need to be a bit more thoughtful as we go through those things.
So I think maybe wearing personal masks whilst we're all kitting up before, as we're helping each other.
Possibly, yeah.
I think so. We're supposed to maintain a 2 meter social distance, but there are times when you can't if you're going to do this sport. And I think, again, that's when we have to wait to see how the guidelines change. That the actual physical risk of zipping someone up from behind them is probably minute. And it may be that there will be some easing of the guidelines in that respect. You can wash your hands after, wear gloves while you do it, dispose of them, wear a mask, as we say. I think, you know, there are ways around it, but at the moment, I think that's one of the reasons why we're not allowed to dive yet, because it is not yet, nobody knows enough yet.
Sure. Yeah. Tim.
I think it's worth highlighting some of the work that's been done on this already. There's a really great document from Divers Alert Network, Dan, out there, which really does cover many of the phases in going diving, getting up, buddy checks, to a certain extent being on a boat, and does try to resolve all of this together. So there is stuff happening. There are procedures evolving. It's out there in the public realm. Really, what we need to all do is make sure that we've all read it, taken it on board, and then make sure that it's always appropriate for where we are. So have a look out for that Dan document. It's a really good thing.
I think there are there's a lot of measurements in place now, and they will change as we've discussed, but a lot of them will still be in place when you do open, whether it's now, whether it's a month, whether it's 10 months time. There will be common sense measures that I will still put into place as a human being, not as a diver, you know. So I will have sanitizer, you will clean your hands, and you will do all those normal things. So they'll all be, and we won't spit in our masks. They've all got to be in place, whether it's now or 10 months time. I can see Carol nodding, so
Yeah.
she agrees with me. So we'll bring Carol in.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean about trusting your customers, because all of us and all our customers are no different than us, are being careful to protect themselves. So they've already been exposed to all these things when they go to the supermarket or the doctors or go to work. It's not something that will be unique to coming to a dive site. So it's going to be a complete change of the human habit as opposed to just what divers do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna, I mean, the world is gonna change, isn't it? And wherever you are, a dive centre, doctors, whatever, it's gonna be, we're all gonna adapt in a different way. It's not gonna be the same as it ever was, I don't think, unless we find a vaccine. So yeah, it's just common sense, I think.
A question that I was asked this week by a fellow diver, dive buddy, and somebody that's actually quite new to diving, was to do with safety on the water or under the water. And we did speak about this yesterday, but his concern was that there may be a fear from staff to help somebody. We try and do everything we do as safe as we can, but there are inherent risks with diving. How will you handle the safety side, and do you feel there'll be any effect, you know, from staff in looking after people?
I think really that's a need to address. We can look at ways of putting a barrier between staff and the diver. We can use masks, bag valve masks. There are all sorts of ways, and there are recommendations coming out from, for example, swimming bodies as well about rescuing swimmers. So someone in the water, there are guidelines emerging which we will be implementing. They will, of course, limit the amount of contact between a rescuer and a diver, but they're all designed to make sure that if we can do rescue breath, we can, and we should be doing CPR as well. So those will be implemented. It will be different. Of course it will. This is something that's changed all our lives, but we're still trying to do our best. And if we train our staff well, then we will be making sure that anyone who does have an accident gets the best treatment. But in the meantime, it goes back to the team game thing. Please be sensible. Please don't push it. Dive within your ability. Turn the dive early if you feel yourself getting into difficulties. It will all be there for another day, and we support everyone who wants to be cautious in that. Yeah,
that's really reassuring. Scott, did you want to come in on that too?
Well, I agree very much with Tim in that no, the safety is there. We will support people that are in difficulty. We will rescue them. We do have to update our procedures to make sure that our staff have the minimal risk in doing so. I think what Tim just said is diving with your limits, dive the courses that you know, dive the equipment that you know, and try to make sure that, like we are all doing by following the government guidance that we've been doing for the last few weeks, is that we can all act in our own behalves that limit the risk that we have to call upon somebody else's help. And that will help us as a site. But as a site, of course, all the safety that we provided to date still has to be there. We wouldn't operate if it was just a case of letting people get on with themselves. That's right.
And haven't we got to consider the reliance of support from medical services as well, and the impact it'll have on them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a social responsibility in restarting diving. This is what it's all about, is that we as a community shouldn't be seen to be overloading the local resources for that sort of thing.
Carol, I know you were saying that you don't believe it would have any effect on your abilities in actually a rescue situation at all.
I don't really think it would change what happens greatly. So, I mean, a rescue situation for us is when the alarm goes, we go out in the boat. If we have to pull someone into the boat, we would have to pull them into the boat. The staff would probably be wearing gloves and masks anyway, as part of their normal dress from now on. If somebody was in dire straits and needed CPR, we have a pocket mask in the boat, which we would use, which gives you a one-way valve anyway. And on shore, we would use an ambu bag. As Tim said, we've got the facility to do that, enriched with oxygen. So you actually tend to do serious rescues using equipment anyway, rather than somebody might if they were just on the shores of a lake with not a lot around them. So we've got a lot of stuff in our go bags that, you know, you would find in an A&E. So it's not as hands-on as you might think even now. And I don't really see it changing those protocols, apart from the behaviour of the staff. Sort of, obviously they would have more personal equipment, protection equipment on all the time. And obviously after any such rescue, you'd have to go for thoroughly cleaning yourself and all that sort of thing afterwards. But
yeah, and that's really reassuring, because obviously every lake in the country that operates the way you guys do all work under the Health and Safety Act and have those provisions in place to be able to deal with anything you need to deal with. Has anyone got anything else they want to add? Anyone got anything specific to their own facility? Sorry, Tim.
Oh, no, I think we're good, actually. I think we've covered things. I think I look forward to working with divers, and you know, when we can get back in the water, it'll be great to see people. You know, we are all divers ourselves. We love to see divers, so I think it's it'll be good to see us getting back towards some sort of normal, however that is.
Whatever that is, yeah.
Whatever the new normal may be, yes.
We're all divers. It's a community project that we all work together so the divers can safely get back into the water without too much risk to staff and divers. And there is no doubt that us and all the other inland sites, dive boats and everything, everybody will be doing their best to ask for a little bit of sympathy from people. And if someone sees something that they don't approve of or that they think isn't the right way to go about it, that they discuss it with us instead of ranting away on Facebook or something like that, because there's too much of that in the modern world. So we all need to cooperate and try and make it work together.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
I second that as well, Carol, and I think the divers and all your customers, that whilst you've been closed, you haven't just been sitting there. All of you have been working very hard behind the scenes to make sure that when you're able to welcome your customers back, you're able to do it safely.
We're all going to do our best, but we're not omniscient, same as our government, and things turn up that you haven't thought of, unforeseen circumstances, new ideas, and we will change as we go along. So we would welcome advice or someone noticing something and telling us, but not to be vilified for doing something wrong.
No, couldn't agree more.
I totally agree in that I think from the outside it may seem that sort of simple improvements are obvious and easy to make, but there's a lot of thought that goes in to doing the risk assessments and to work out the procedures that strike that balance to enable people back into diving, to keep it safe, etc., etc. So we very much appreciate the comments and the thoughts from our customers. Certainly, if there's anything that people isn't happy with, if it's another diver, then you can do it in a very kind, courteous way, and you can talk to us about it. And we would much rather hear about people's experiences, positive or negative, whatever they are, then we can do something about it. We are all learning as we go. It is hard work to go through and try to think of every eventuality, and things will come out that we hadn't thought of. So I totally agree with Carol. And there was a reaction to the British Diver Safety Group meeting that I saw on Facebook, that people were making comments about that. it did all settle down. I understand people's reactions, and I think at this time we just need to keep a cool head and be sensible about things.
Yeah, here. And a final word, Tim.
Well, just to reiterate, really look forward to seeing people back diving safely. We're all working hard in the diving industry to make things safe for divers, safe for us, give people the best information that we've got. It is a strange time. It's a worrying time. Everyone wants to get back to doing what they recognise as normal and enjoying themselves. We hear that, and we're all working hard to make sure that's going to happen for people in as soon as possible. Really, that's it. That's what we want to do.
Brilliant.
I
Fantastic.
mean, thank you ever so much, everyone, for coming on and chatting to us. Before we go, would you just like to plug your individual sites? Because I've not had the pleasure of diving at any of your sites yet. And all three of them are top of my list when I can do. But if you want to tell everyone a little bit about your sites, that'd be great. Carol?
Well, we've been here for 25 years. We have a 11-acre lake, lots of things in the water for divers to look at, and absolutely stunning visibility, which is incredible at the moment. So we can't wait to see the divers back here. And we will be posting on Facebook and on our website, of course, as soon as we know anything. So look forward to having you all back, guys.
Excellent. Thank you. Scott?
So we're the new kid on the block. We've been open for about a year and a half. The lake is an ex-chalk quarry. We're lucky enough to have 38 metres is our deepest attraction at the moment. We've measured 41, but I've not dived that myself yet. So that's as deep as you'll get. Locally, the lake was known as the Blue Lake for many, many years, as it was quarried as a wet quarry and has a startling blue colour to it. It does mean that we've got good viz. So I say good sort of 4 to 5 metres is very, very typical. We don't get big algae blooms. We don't get blackout. The water quality is great, and it tastes nice if you do get some in your mouth. It's not dirty. We've got attractions in there. We've got a shallow course for open waters. We do teach open waters in the lake, and we've got the things that deeper, the 30 plus metres, etc. The site itself is 120 acres. The lake is 70 acres. We are going through planning, so there is a big project to bring in some quite fantastic facilities on site. At the moment, we're operating from what we call temporary buildings, but we have all the things you'd expect: a change room, toilets, cafe, etc., etc. And like Carol, we look forward to seeing everybody come in very, very soon.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Okay, Tim. Tim, tell us about Vobster.
It's Vobster Key for me. We've got 36 acres of freshwater. We're sort of right in the middle of Somerset, but think 25 miles south of Bath. We are the home to INTD. We also have the Red Bear Free Breather based at Vobster Key. We've hosted Tech Camp, and it's a full facilities place. So we've got very friendly staff. We've got generally very friendly customers, lots of swimmers. It's a lovely ambience, good viz, 35 metres maximum depth, and we've sunk heaps of things over the years. So come and have a look. We look forward to seeing people.
Thank you so much, guys. Jim and I really do hope that the next time we see you, it'll be when we walk through the door with our dive kit in the back of the car. Tim, I hope and pray that Tech Camp goes on, because I'm booked into Tech Camp this year. So hope that still happens. Obviously, wait to hear with bated breath. But thank you, everybody, so much for coming in and letting us know what's going on in the background.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And hopefully we can catch up again in a few weeks.
When we know what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank
Good
you,
luck,
everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
Brilliant interview there with the guys from the UK inland sites. Really pleased to see them. So that's just about the end of this episode. Really appreciate all the downloads, likes, shares, and subscribing to our YouTube channel. Remember, ring that bell, as everybody says, ring it to keep up to date. Our next episode coming up is with Peter Hammerstead and Paul Watson, both of Sea Shepherd. Paul Watson's the founder, and Peter Hammerstead, you can hear about how he's worked his way up to Director of Campaigns at Sea Shepherd Global and Captain of the Bob Barker. Anything you want to add, Craig?
So looking forward to that next episode. The reaction from our Facebook posts already, Jim, because it's Sea Shepherd, is just fantastic, and the interview was brilliant with Peter, and we're really looking forward to talking to Paul Watson on Tuesday, and then we'll edit that up and get it out as soon as we can. Again, reiterate what you said. Thanks to the guys. It's really good to see them. Please like, share. Everything we do is free, and above us here you will see our Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram account. So please like, share, and subscribe.
Easy for you to say. Okay, see you next time.